Can you all hear me all right?
Yeah.
I'll use the mic if you can't. But, anyway, good evening everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us to talk to you this evening. First of all, may I say that we're not that experienced in public speaking compared with your very able Mr. David Hodrian there. However, we feel the subject of UFOs is important enough that any lack of experience that we may have in verbal etiquette is more important than sharing our experiences with you and getting the message out there, so please bear with us. Now, my name's Steve Drewson, and together with Emlyn Williams here, we co-founded Sufon, which is the acronym for Swansea UFO Network. We're also joined tonight by one of our hard-working members, which is Mr. Mike Maunder there, who hopefully will ensure none of the electronics go wrong. They normally do. Well, both Emlyn and myself have had a long-standing interest in the subject of UFO sightings and alien abductions, etc. And probably like yourselves, we've read many books and articles on the subject and its many offshoots. Now, I'm sure many people you've come across have expected you all to be wearing anoraks and tin-foil hats. Well, spare a thought for Emlyn and myself, because the thing is, you know, people expect us to be all that, and wearing wellies and living in caves and you know, associating with good-looking sheep. Well, what are the children are? Doris, remember Doris last year? She was good-looking.
That's true.
She was a bit of a stunner, let me tell you, she was a stunner. Anyway, a little bit about my background. I spent 30 years as a traffic police officer with South Wales Constabulary. And 10 years as a warehouse manager. So I eventually retired altogether in April 2010 to become another burden and drain on society. But it didn't take me long to realise there's only so much Jeremy Kyle and reruns of the SWUN you can watch in 1 week. So I decided to try and further my interest, which was long-standing, in the subject of UFOs. It does seem strange that so many police officers seem to have an avid interest in UFOs. Maybe it's because they spend so long working night shifts out in the outdoors and witness unusual events, or who knows, I don't know. Anyway, I digress. I decided to trawl through the internet in an effort to find a local UFO group that I could join. And to cut a long story short, it transpired that all the local clubs had either folded or they were just limiting themselves to online discussions. So basically that left just one alternative, and that was to try and start my own group. So with that in mind, I set up a Facebook page and entitled it Swansea Area UFO Club Examination and Research Team. Now, it was a bit of a mouthful, yes, but it did manage to capture nicely the acronym SAUCER. So, anyway, funnily enough, within 24 hours I was contacted by Emlyn here, who unbeknown to me was living just 2 miles down the road from me, and he just started a Facebook page that very day on the same subject. Now, that's a classic case of synchronicity if ever I heard one. So naturally we arranged to meet up, and we discussed the situation and agreed we would pool our resources and start a new group between us, which after some deliberation we termed Swansea UFO Network. Now, we've been running just a little over 18 months, and in fairness things have moved pretty quickly for us. We hold a regular monthly meeting like yourselves, and just in over half of those meetings we had the pleasure of being addressed by some excellent guest speakers, including a number of authors, a crop circle expert, an Egyptologist, and the likes of Mr. Ben Endon Jones, Mr. Gary Hesseltine, who I believe has addressed you, and of course your illustrious Mr. David Hodrian. On nights when we do not have the benefit of a guest speaker, Emlyn and I tend to give a short talk on UFOs or an associated topic, and then throw the floor open for discussion and debate. Our attendance varies between 20 and 80 persons, depending on the weather and the speaker. So that's basically 20 persons for Emlyn and myself, and 80 for Mr. Gary Hesseltine. So, similar to yourselves, we have a lot of attendees who found, for the first time, they're able to open up and discuss sightings they've had and situations they found themselves in. Sometimes they've repressed these incidents for years for fear of disbelief or ridicule. In fact, many of the visitors have compared our meetings to that of an AA meeting, if you like, where after sharing their story, they're able to go home and get drunk. No, able to go home and with a sense of relief at being able to share their experiences, You know, it's the first time they've been able to do that sort of thing. We hold regular sky watches, as you probably do, throughout the year when the weather conditions permit. I find the sky watches don't tend to be as well attended as we would like, although our members are always keen to know what the result of the night's events were. I suppose it's understandable as quite a lot of our members are older and not really your classic sporty outdoor types. And, you know, given the topography of Wales, it's what we sometimes have to climb every mountain, as they say, in order to reach a good vantage point. So we also arrange trips and visits to places of interest, such as crop circles, historical sites, and UFO conferences, etc. There's a new purpose-made website which has been constructed. It's currently in the process of being revised and updated by Mr. Mike Maunder here. Now, Emlyn, I must say, has been a very good ambassador for the club, as over a period of many years he's amassed a huge record of local sightings and incidents. And they're in the process of being downloaded onto the new website, which is www.sufon.co.uk. Now, the information that's on there has been compiled from various sources, including a large variety of books and magazines, as well as the internet. He's also spent a huge amount of time trawling through every edition of our local daily newspapers from 1950 to date, searching for any articles that have been published on the subject. Now, there's a few different daily and evening newspapers in our area, and in the case of our local evening paper, this equates to over 24,000 copies. So it's quite a laborious task, and it's still ongoing. Now, fortunately, he has a little bit of help these days from some of our more enthusiastic club members. But in the main, I suppose, one of our biggest tasks is the process of interviewing people who've had a UFO or an alien sighting or contact. Some of the persons have been traced from the mediums I just mentioned, and some have contacted us at the club, and some are friends or acquaintances of our members or previous persons we've interviewed. The interviews are either recorded just in writing or sometimes by filming the proceedings, and I believe we're now up to some in the region of, what, 500 plus reports, Emily, is it? 500?
Yeah, 521.
Yeah, 521 reports at the moment.
That's fantastic in 18 months.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah. Now this evening, Emlyn's going to run through some of the more interesting reports we received, but meantime, I'd just like to touch on one of them. Now, we've all heard about the more famous UFO incidents from around Britain, Rendlesham, Warminster, and in our neck of the woods, you've got the Berwyn Mountain incident, the Welsh Triangle, or Dyfed Enigma. But something Emlyn and I are currently investigating is probably one of Britain's biggest one-night UFO sightings, involving several separate UFOs, which were witnessed by a huge number of independent witnesses. Now, the Sunday Mirror reported that over 200 separate people witnessed this spectacle, including a football team and a class of school children. Now, as usual, the local media reported the incident for 2 consecutive nights, and then the matter was shelved. But my opinion is it's probably one of the biggest mass UFO sightings that there's been, that you can name over 200 witnesses. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about the incident, but I'm not going to bore you with the individual witness testimonies, but perhaps 1 or 2 of the more interesting ones. Now, while I'm doing that, Emily hopefully will be drawing out for you the individual sightings on the map of Swansea and Gower Coast, and hopefully including the times and directions of the travel of the craft. Now, the whole thing occurred between early and late evening on the night of Wednesday, the 19th of January 1983, when dark triangular-shaped craft was seen to move slowly and silently at a very low altitude over various parts of Swansea and also the Cardiff area. And for this reason, our clubs dubbed the incident the Night of the Triangles. Sorry? Wind, is it? Oh, it's the wife, sorry. A multitude of people rang the police, the Coast Guard, the airports, the RAF, the radio stations, and the newspapers about this. The sightings were subsequently reported in the local Swansea newspaper, the South Wales Evening Post, and also the South Wales Echo in Cardiff. That was the following evening, and then the usual attempts to deride the event were published on the subsequent evening. Now, all these people saw what they individually corroborated as being triangular-shaped objects moving slowly and silently at a low altitude across the skies. Some reported single craft, whilst others saw 2 or 3 close together. The times recorded of many of the sightings were absolutely identical, and as these craft were miles apart, it left no doubt that there were clearly many objects being observed in the sky at the same time. Obviously, as is the case with any witnesses to an event, there's always slight ambiguities between testimonies, but in the main there appears to be overwhelming analogical description of what these craft actually looked like. Firstly, they were triangular, and in the main large, extremely large. Some describe them as being as big as 2 football pitches, and others as filling the street above their houses. And don't forget, there's 200 witnesses to this. There would seem to have been a large, singular, circular-shaped light at the underside of the 3 corners. The predominant opinion of the witnesses puts the colour of those lights as white. And there seems to have been a large, circular, single light under the centre of the craft, which was red in colour. Now, in the main, the altitude of the objects was described as a couple of 100 feet up. But in some cases, the objects were described as virtually skimming the houses that they were passing over. All the witnesses seem to agree that no sound was heard coming from any of the objects. Now, 2 of the witnesses were South Wales police detectives, and they described one of the objects, which was heading towards them, as being as large as 2 football fields. Now, we're talking about a detective superintendent here, not just any old Harry, right? So I think you can take his testimony as being true. The object then turned to its right, and it slowly disappeared in the direction of the coast. They were apparently contacted by RAF. Yeah, sure.
You will see it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the Gower Peninsula, I don't know if you know where.
Looks like a foot.
I thought they looked familiar.
Yeah. Swansea being built up areas in green there. Swansea Bay,
Yeah.
Gower Peninsula, the next piece here, and that's Port Talbot. So you get your bearings where we're talking about. That's 25 miles through there. So that was the one you said.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, these 2 detectives were apparently contacted by RAF Uxbridge, who questioned them about the incident before they went off duty that night, which is strange in itself. Now, in one rural area of Swansea, one resident's home was plunged into darkness when his electricity went off. So in order to check if it was just his home or whether other residents were affected, he opened the lounge window of his bungalow and he looked out. He immediately saw that one of the aforementioned described craft was drifting slowly overhead and disappearing away into the distance. He later established that the electricity supplier had in fact failed to a large number of residents in his village, and it was restored later that evening. Now, all these numerous triangular sightings over various parts of 2 cities were explained away by the various official bodies with the usual contemporaneous soothing ring of familiarity about them, namely meteorites, high-level aircraft refueling, a satellite re-entering Earth's orbit which was burning up, a Sea King helicopter, and even refraction of atmospheric dust. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and these were observed, right in front of them. 1985 obviously was a little too early for Chinese landings, or I suspect that would have been involved as well. Added to the list. Yeah. Now, Emlyn and I are attempting to trace and interview every witness to this incident. Currently, we're aware of 26 separate witnesses in our Swansea area, and there's many more in the Cardiff area, which we've yet to investigate. Of course, because it's such a long time ago now, a lot of people have passed on, passed away, moved away. They're very difficult to trace. We're doing our best to get around them all. And of course, the more witnesses you speak to, the more you find. Now, it seems these sightings actually interrupted 2 amateur football matches, one in Swansea and one in the Cardiff area, where the players just watched in amazement as these objects flew overhead. We investigated the sighting of one of the objects in the Sketty area, you probably know it, the Sketty area of Swansea, where a gentleman reported to us that his father, who was a driving instructor and has sadly since passed away, was just leaving his house to go to his car, which was parked on the roadway outside his house, to collect a pupil. Now it seems he witnessed an immense triangular object displaying lights on its underside, passing over his house, and then over the houses on the opposite side of the road. He said that his father had told him that he was travelling so low that he actually had to ascend in order to clear the roofs on the houses on the opposite side. Now his father didn't report the matter for the usual reasons, but after his father passed away, his son contacted us as he felt it was, now his father died, he deemed it important that the sighting should be officially recorded. And a very genuine witness, the son, wasn't he? Yeah.
That's in there.
Yeah, that's in there, yeah.
That's
That's
it.
it. That's the house, yeah. Okay. Now, this sighting ties in nicely with another which occurred at the same time, only this witness actually reported missing time during her sighting. She was only 13 years old at the time, and she resided in a road that ran parallel with and 2 roads from and directly in the flight path of the previous person's sighting. So you can imagine a road running here, craft went this way, over another road there, and she's the next one down. It was exactly the same time. Now she stated that whilst watching television in the house, she felt compelled for some reason to go to her front door. And on looking out, she saw a massive object silently hovering over the houses on the opposite side of the road. She compared it to the shape of an oval football stadium, and its underneath was covered in large round lights, which were constantly changing colour. Come in. Go up. Now, while she was describing the object as being oval, it seems that what she was actually observing was a close-up of its underside. And the extremities of the object were outside of her field of vision. So actually the object could have been easily a different shape then, if you like. Now she described that everything seemed very still, and although it should have been a cold night, it wasn't. Now she very excitedly called to her sister and her stepfather to come outside to see the object, which they did. But she describes their behaviour as being extremely strange and uncharacteristic, in that neither of them displayed any excitement or interest, and eventually just went back in the house as if they'd, well, if you like, been switched off. Now other people in nearby houses were also standing on their doorsteps watching the proceedings. Now unfortunately our inquiries revealed they've since moved away or passed away, so we can't contact them. Anyway, our witness was determined to watch what developed and was anxious to see the craft actually moving away. She then described that after watching for what seemed like 10 minutes, she suddenly started to feel very cold. The wind had picked up, and she was now the only person left on the street. More importantly, the object had just disappeared without her seeing it leave. The stars were now visible where it had been located. So she returned to the house in a confused state and was greeted by her stepfather, who joked with her saying, "Well, did you see your UFO go?" And the subject was never raised again. Now many years later, when she did mention the night in question, her stepfather had absolutely no recollection of the incident at all, and her sister said she thought it had all been a dream. Now she believes to this day that something more had happened that evening that she has no recollection of. She has apparently considered undergoing hypnotic regression, but decided that she didn't really want to pursue that avenue, as the memories she currently has of it are positive, and she doesn't want to recall anything which might be of a negative nature, so you can sympathise with her there, really. Now, speaking as an ex-police officer with 30 years' experience in interviewing people, I think I have a pretty good idea when someone is being honest or being a little bit economical with the truth. Anyone who's had experience in the interview of UFO witnesses has regularly encountered the witness who has read a library full of UFO books, or seen every episode of Star Wars 15 times, has a vivid imagination, or maybe just wants their name in lights. Sometimes you find yourself faced with even the Venus de Milo. Very pretty, but not all there. Now I can say with regard to this case that I've been involved in the interview with every person that we've been able to trace to date, and I can emphatically state that all the witnesses are bona fide members of the public, many of them with respected professional backgrounds, not looking for 15 minutes of fame or living out some kind of fantasy. They know what they've seen, and they're unable to attribute what they've seen to anything that has a rational explanation. So it makes you wonder what is required before the general public stand up to the government and say, well, look, there's no doubt these things exist. What on earth is going on? Now, hopefully while I've been talking, Emily here has been busy drawing the various sightings on the map. All right. Yeah. Yeah, she did. This is Natalie here, which is the one that we interviewed. That was 13-year-old that saw it. Said that the craft was as big as an oval football pitch, like an American football pitch, which was over. But I believe the craft was actually bigger than that. She was just viewing the underneath of it. But she told us that ever since that incident, she kept putting her hand in her hair. And when she actually had a good look, she actually got a bald patch there, and she's had no hair growing ever since that incident occurred. So maybe this is the one who had been missing time, so I don't know. Yeah, she's got a slight raised mark on it as well, but I don't know if there's anything implanted in there, I don't know. But she was a very honest witness as well, you know, and she didn't really want to come forward, but she felt that she had to. So anyway, perhaps Emily can show you now some directions of travel. Can you? You've done them, have you?
The ones you mentioned so far.
Oh, right. Well, I haven't got every single one down. I said I don't want to mention every single one. I bought the pants off them so I can be here all night talking about every single one.
Could you talk about Milan?
Yeah, there was one other incident, which you may have a picture of here. This one here. So this gentleman here was waiting to go into a club, similar to this one, standing outside on a Saturday or something. Was it Saturday? Wednesday night, that's right.
Same night?
Yeah, the same night. And well, they saw a triangular-shaped object coming straight down the street at a low height, a real low elevation. There's the street. It was coming down, straight down the street. One of them ran into the club when it opened. What did he go in for? To tell everyone about it, or was he going to bring the paper? Yeah, yeah, it was absolutely massive. When he came out again, there was two in the air, going in opposite directions to each other. Yeah, they were small ones. It wasn't the original one, but there was two small ones going in opposite directions to each other. And they're both very good witnesses as well. And this is, as you can see, years ago, when he was pointing out to us there exactly where they were and how they travelled. Is there more pictures there?
Yeah, due south and then it turned and went east.
Yeah.
That one. That was happening at the same time as the that one there, going over the low over the houses. It happened at the same time, 6:15.
Is there a possibility that this could have been the larger one that you've seen first of all?
No, because that one was only the car.
Right.
But that was, you see there, and they all went off towards the east.
Yeah.
Well, that one was heading towards the bay.
Yeah.
So
Well, can you put on there, if you can remember, where the others were around the same time?
yeah, I'm going to go to the map right, look, picture.
Yeah.
Going to get a bit cluttered now. Yeah, that one. That was on Town Hill, which is roughly there, this area. And he saw two big triangles going south. That sort of.
Very slowly, did you?
Very slowly. And they were also seen, I think it was the same two, were seen by somebody down in Swansea. You sort of you see the drawing of the two triangles earlier? The press cutting? Well, those are the same as what that guy there saw. He was only 8 years old at the time. You don't have to go back to it, you know. Yeah, jump back to Mark again. He was 8 years old with his mother. Just leaving the house there. That sort of work. That was, we don't know what the time, but the woman who did the drawing said it was about 10 to 6 when she leaving work, so it's 5:50. I don't even see the times of written on, it's a bit small. But we're looking at 5:30, 6:15, 6:15, so not the same object, obviously, because into different places. That was about 7 p.m. The two policemen saw that one, and he said it was rectangular with two triangles stuck on the back of it.
Yeah.
And he said it was about the size of 2 football pitches.
Well, whilst he said it was rectangular, because it was coming towards him, it could have been triangular, couldn't it? Because he was just looking at the front of it.
Another lady we saw, we went to meet, she lives in this area here, this was Skewing, which is part of Leith. She saw an object over Kilbay Hill, which is a big hill to the east of Swansea. Hovering over the hill. All she could see, because it was like 5 or 6 miles away, just lots of lights, and they would move that way, and they move that way. And in a blink, he went from there to there, to that area. In those days, there was a big oil refinery there called BP Clandarcy. And she said it stopped. He was about a mile from her at that point. He hovered over the oil refinery. And she said he was the size of the oil refinery and he was triangular. And the oil refinery is something like 2 or 3 miles across. Yeah. And that was actually about 5:15. That was the earliest on the night that we've got. So a big triangle there. 5:15. He travelled from there to there. He hovered there for a few 10 minutes. And the whole family were hanging out the window looking at it. And all of a sudden they just shot straight up in the air at the sight. Instantly. And then an hour later then all these things were happening. This one here, run away between 7 and 8, the witness said, this is a long time ago, he can't quite remember, there's an image that you can I think. This place called Bishopston on the Gower Peninsula. He was watching TV and all the lights went off, power cut. So he went to the window to see if the area was out or if it was just his street. And then he saw a shot. Then he saw, I don't know if you can quite see it, if not. This is a view outside of his window, which this is a reproduction that he's put together. And there's just 3 white lights in the sky moving slowly that direction. And positive that caused the power cut. In the local paper it said that the power cut was caused by the energy company said it was caused by power lines being affected by trees coming down in strong wind. So there was no wind at all, like no breath that night.
And he was a very genuine witness he was, in fact, wasn't he? You know, he's not an enthusiastic watcher of Star Wars or anything like that. You know, he's a bit wary of talking to us actually, but very genuine.
There was other witnesses, Port Talbot, saw triangular craft moving that direction. You haven't got these of it?
No, I've got them all.
You'll like it.
Yeah, there's so many different reporters. Just touch on a couple of them. But if we put them all up there, you'll have lines everywhere. Yeah,
there was somebody else saw one going that way at about between 6:30 and 7. Somebody saw something here hovering really low. You wouldn't give us his name, you wouldn't be quite scared.
Was he the one who came to the club? Yeah, that was interesting. Somebody came to our club to talk about this. How long was he there? He wasn't there long, was he?
Half an hour.
Yeah, and he just couldn't bring himself to stay. He got very, very upset and walked out. And he was one of the witnesses to this.
I think I covered most of the minutes of it. That's one of the police detectives.
That's the retired superintendent there.
We tracked him down a couple of weeks back and he was given a case to do. He was in this area of the city and saw the gigantic rectangle or triangular thing heading that way and it turned and went that way. And we got the contact details of his colleague at the time. They both retired and they haven't seen each other for years. So we're going to get them both together and film the interview on site where they were when they saw the objects and they can describe exactly what.
Have a reunion for them as well at the same time. Yeah, there are. There's a lot of these. If you want to look at our site on YouTube, you'll find a lot of the interviews are on there. So. Anyway, before I finish now, I want to move on to something that may or may not be connected with our Night of the Triangles. And that's, you may have heard about it, you may not, I don't know. And that's what appears to be a UFO crash which occurred at Llanellar, near Aberystwyth. Now, it was either on the same day or the day after our Night of the Triangle. And it's been dubbed by our investigators as the Welsh Roswell, if you like. Now, the exact time and date of the incident is open to conjecture, as apparently there were actually no witnesses to this. There was a farmer in the rural village of Llanibar, Mr. Urwell Evans. Try saying that unless you Welsh. Urwell Evans. He went to check on the well-being of his sheep one morning. We didn't know any of them, did we? And he discovered that 4 of his fields were strewn with debris. Now, fearing there had been a plane crash, he reported the matter to the local police. Now, Mr. Evans subsequently received a visit from the RAF's crash investigation team, who, after inspecting the debris, advised him that it was definitely not from any aircraft that the RAF were aware of. Now, shortly after that, a team of MOD investigators arrived. They began a search of the area and directed a contingent of uniformed police officers to collect every piece of debris that they could find. Now, this debris varied in size from just a few inches to pieces as large as 6 foot. This thorough operation continued into the hours of darkness by torchlight, which prompted Farmer Evans to remark that it resembled something out of a James Bond movie. Now, the MOD made only one comment on the matter, which was some 2 weeks after the event, and they stated that at the time they were unable to identify the nature of the fragments found on Mr. Evans' farm. They confirmed that there were no RAF aircraft in the area. Their radar had not detected any craft in the area at the time of the incident. Now then, they also said that there was no RAF or privately owned aircraft that had been reported crashed or missing. Now, there was a UFO investigator based in North Wales, Mr. Gary Rowe. I don't know if you've heard about him. Now, he got to hear about this incident, and he assembled a team of investigators, and with the farmer's permission, he scoured the fields for any further evidence of the crash, but they failed to find anything. Now, adjacent to the field areas was a forest, which on inspection revealed that a swathe had been cut through the tops of the trees in a straight line towards these fields. Now, when searching the land beneath the trees, they soon started to find small pieces of debris. The metallic debris was of a sort of greeny grey colour, and it was honeycombed and very, very strong in nature. So Gary later sent some of the fragments to a metallurgist for examination. Now, the results showed that its composition appeared to be that of an alloy similar to duralumin, which is an alloy used in aircraft construction, but it did not appear to be that of an alloy that they could recognise or one that was being produced anywhere in the world at that time. The green paint that was on it, or colour that was on it, appeared to be acting as some kind of a protector to the alloy, but it hasn't as yet been identified. Now, a few weeks later, Gary received a visit from some officials purporting to be from a government agency, our men in black then, if you like. They requested that he hand over to them any fragments of debris that he'd collected from the scene. Now, Gary was quite clever here because he anticipated that the situation might arise. He explained to them that he'd actually manufactured 100 key rings from some of the collected debris, and he distributed the key rings to dozens of people he knew throughout the UK. So he explained that if he was forced to hand over any of his remaining debris, he would request the persons who held the key rings to contact the British media immediately with them. So consequently, realising the futility of the situation, the officials left empty-handed and nothing more was said. Now, there's one last significant part to the story, and that's this. Gary and his team decided that they would make one last visit to Llanilla to see if they could find any more pieces of debris there and have a last search of the area. Now, shortly before they were due to leave, Gary received a telephone call from this Farmer Evans, and he stated that they were welcome to still attend, but there would be little point as the Forestry Commission were in attendance at that time and were in the process of cutting down the wooded area. Consequently, the search was cancelled, and instead Gary contacted the Forestry Commission for an explanation of what was going on. It was oddly explained to him they were removing the copse due to storm damage. So, was it a crashed aircraft? Well, we don't know, although it doesn't appear to have been. Was it a UFO? Well, I suppose the answer is yes, isn't it? Was it extraterrestrial in origin? Again, we don't know. So that's it. Now then, as regards our Night of the Triangles, there's still a huge amount of investigative work to be done. before we had the full facts of exactly what went on that night. So basically, there you have it. We've got over 200 witnesses to the strange, silent, low-flying craft, which to date nobody has satisfactorily explained away. But as far as the media and the authorities were concerned, the whole matter was shelved within 48 hours. So that's it. I don't know about you, but I think this is certainly probably one of Britain's most interesting cases of fallen meteors. So anyway, thank you for listening to me. Edmund's going to take over now. He's going to give you a bit of a chat about some of our local sightings, which might...
I'll do a bit, then we'll have a break, and then I'll do another bit. Well, basically, like the triangles, I just added what Steve said. The official suggestion was that it was low-level military planes, high-level military planes refueling, which is a gem. There was another similar night to this in 1996, and 86.
86,
and again, the same explanation came forward. Now, mind the fact that these things were at low level, many of them, no sound at all, some cases static, some cases moving very slowly, and in at least one case moving instantly about 5 miles in the straight away. So it was physics of whitewashing.
Nice drag.
So I got a black sleeve, right? You can see it.
There's no reading. His wife's going to love him when he gets home.